Hi everyone, welcome back to the Social Media Derby. We've got a very special North London Derby episode this week. It's probably going to be a bit of a shorter one because we've obviously just wrapped up the international break. But before we get into the podcast, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share if you can. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review as well. All of that stuff helps with the algorithms and gets us in front of more eyeballs and hopefully grows the podcast. So all of it is much appreciated. How you doing, Jonty? You good?
Yeah, I'm not doing too badly, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm looking forward to the Prem coming back because I feel like I don't know if you've done this, but I've had a bit of a football cleanse over the last. I did watch some of the highlights for both the England games, but I haven't really watched a single game for a full 90 minutes, and I feel better for it. So I'm ready for what the weekend, and I don't know if you've seen the schedule. It's not only the weekend; we're going like football crazy for the next like 3 or 4 weeks until the next international break. So I think this break has helped. How about you? Have you caught any of the games?
Nah, just been watching the highlights as well, mainly just the England highlights. Don't really care about anything else. And yeah, I mean, even the England ones, I'm not that enthused about. I mean, I see some stuff on social media about Lee Carsley and Carsball, as they're calling it now, and some performances from a few different players. So that kind of piqued my interest. So I took a look at the highlights and haven't watched the Norway highlights because it's just going to make me cry. So not going to watch those ones, but yeah, just watch the England ones. Saw Decky Rice, and yeah. Other than that, I'm not really too interested. So a bit of a cleanse on my end as well.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of stories obviously going out. Carsley Ball, the stuff about him not singing the national anthem, which some of that conversation around that is pretty ridiculous on my end, I think. And then Angel Gomez from a United angle he got his first cap and made his full debut as well in the game against Finland. So yeah,
He looked pretty good
that's
as well.
probably no, he's a good player, man. He's always had the technical ability. I think it was just a case of growing into men's football because when he had the few little runouts for us, he just looked quite lightweight. But I mean, all youngsters kind of do, I guess. I mean, unless you're like Scott McTominay and 6'4" or whatever, and come in looking like bloody Captain America on your like first few games, like, or even Collier, he's quite big, isn't he? Like, um, it's not always the case, and I think he was dropped in super early, so he may have been one of our youngest ever debutants. So I think you may have got him when he was 16 or 17. So it's kind of the same as and Weary for you guys. Like he looked pretty lightweight when he first had his debut, and he's looking bigger and stronger like each time you see him. So it's the same with Angel Gomez, and he's played lots of men's football now. He's obviously been out on loan at Boa Vista, playing at Lille for a couple of seasons now. So yeah, interesting. I think his contract is up at the end of the season, so it'd be interesting to see where he goes. We've been linked with bringing him back again. I think he's been linked with Newcastle. He's been linked with a couple of clubs. So let's see how it goes. I don't really see the need for him in our squad at the moment, but if we were to sell a Mason Mount or something like that, then I could see maybe us bringing him back on a free, being like kind of a bit of an economical situation. But yeah, that's the only stuff with the England games that I've seen and focused on because yeah, we've got a big game. Both of us have got big games this weekend. Your one's a bit more obvious than mine. But we'll start with mine because the rest of the episode is going to be really North London derby heavy. So it's Man United away to Southampton. It's the Jurgen Klopp time slot, 12:30 on a Saturday on TNT Sports. Yeah, interesting one. We'll chat through some of the big talking points because obviously I think Ugarte played both games for Uruguay over this break. I think he played the majority of one, and then he played the full 90 in the most recent one. And a lot of people really clamoring for him to start. Do you think that will happen, Johns? First of all, I'll give my opinion afterwards, and if he does, if you don't think it will happen, what do you think the outcome will be?
I think it should happen, but I don't think it will happen. I think Ten Hag has been pretty clear about not wanting to drop certain players into the system too quickly, even though there's doesn't appear to be a system of any kind anyway. apparently you've got to learn how to do nothing in order to play properly for Ten Hag. So I don't think he will start. I think Ten Hag was pretty clear in his last press conferences, and if anything, he's probably quite a stubborn guy and is not going to walk those back. So I think he's probably going to come out and say no. He starts on the bench, maybe comes on maybe for the 20, 30 minutes, but definitely doesn't start. And I think, I mean, in terms of Man United fans, I think you should be pretty annoyed if he doesn't, because I think he obviously played for Uruguay, which means that he's in good enough condition to be playing in terms of match fitness and stuff like that. And if he wasn't, those 2 games would have definitely helped get his match fitness up. And I mean, it's a pretty, even though it doesn't feel like a very important game in terms of like the names, right? It's like Southampton, it's not like crazy, but I think it's really important in terms of where you are in the season, and really important for Ten Hag, and important for keeping fans on side, right? Like first few fixtures, not too many great results. And I think the pressure is on, right? Losing to Liverpool 3-0, as much as it hurt, kind of being bopped off the pitch, losing to Southampton, a newly promoted team, would hurt significantly more. And I think there'd be a lot more vitriol through the Man United fan base. So I don't think he will start Ugarte. And I think Man United fans should be upset if he doesn't, because it's a pretty critical game for you guys. You need to kind of stop the rot. And in order to do that, you need to be playing your best players. And if you see Casemiro touch pitch, or if you see other players touch pitch that definitely aren't better than Ugarte, that should probably hurt a little bit for you guys, because what was the point of buying him if it's quite clear that he's not injured or anything and he's able to play minutes, and then just not start him? It's also not as if his role is like, obviously midfielders' roles are important and they do need time to bed in, but he's a destroyer. You just need him to be a destroyer. It's not like you're asking him to do something he's never done before. You need him to sit in there next to Mainu and clap people and pass it to Mainu just over and over again. So it's not as if he's like trying to learn, like he's trying to learn how to be a bloody attacking midfielder or something. Stick him in there and let him clap people. That's like literally what he was born to do. And I'm sure, even though I haven't watched Uruguay highlights, it was what he was doing on in those games as well. So yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't start him, but it is baffling why that would happen.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on previous eps, and I've said, like, I get the whole logic of easing players in. A lot of managers do it. Most of them do, actually, I would say. So it's not a Ten Hag specific thing, but I think it's the optics around it. Coming off the back of getting battered by Liverpool at home, your defensive midfielder in that game playing atrociously, getting hooked at half time, which essentially shows the need for a player like Ugarte and why you bought him. He plays 2 games over the international break. He looked pretty good from the little clips and stuff that I saw. Obviously, clips are not representative of the whole game, but they didn't concede any goals over that period, and his role is definitely a DM. And he plays for Uruguay quite similarly from the clips and stuff I saw to how we would probably ask him to play. Like, it was covering a lot of ground. It was, doing a defensive midfielder's role, but also picking it up off the back 4 and doing simple passes and progressing the ball without too much complication. And really, that's what Casemiro's been asked to do. So yeah, in terms of stylistically, I think he's kind of hasn't got that kind of safety net to say, oh, he doesn't know how we want to play, because he basically played that way for Uruguay. And he's shown now that he's got enough fitness to at least start and give us an hour or 70 minutes. I think that would be reasonable. If you play him, maybe not the whole game, but you ease him in. But, he's got to touch the pitch from kickoff. But I agree with you. I think with Ten Hag, the stubbornness has been one of his big issues that has kind of reared its ugly head since season 2. Because in season 1, he would make changes. He would do things. He was impacting games and not sticking to certain. Have you seen that clip that's gone around about sticking to the plan? Stick to the plan. Make sure you stick to the plan. What's the plan? Stick to the plan. Oh, that meme is class. Honestly, I hate that phrase now. I want everyone to change the plan. Don't stick to plans. But yeah, there's a big chance that he does just either put Collier in from the beginning or bring back Casemiro for some sort of remontada. But I agree with you. I think we should see Ugarte start, and we should see him play a substantial amount in this game. Another talking point, I guess, which has kind of come up in the last day or two is De Ligt, because he had, I don't want to say a rough international break, but Netherlands conceded quite a few goals. They weren't all down to him, which I don't really like how the media's gone after him a bit. Van Dijk played alongside him in all of those games, and they conceded the goals together. In my eyes, he did give away one goal, a couple of days back in the last game against Germany, where he was trying to play it out from the back, and the ball got intercepted, and then I think it was Wirtz in the end scored the goal, so he got some blame. And then I want to give Ronald Koeman an absolute blast here. What an absolute! Have you seen his comments after the match about
Nope.
why he basically said everything De Ligt does now is turning into goals. All his mistakes are being punished. I didn't want to have to take him off, but I had to. Like something about these Dutch coaches waffling. Honestly, it's the next level. I feel like we'll see Slot start waffling rubbish soon as well. But like Koeman, that's your own player, mate. What are you doing? You know, when everyone was giving absolute grief, Mourinho and all these different managers for sometimes criticising their players, I think Koeman just takes it to the next level. I don't know if you saw what he said about Bergwijn as well, moving to Saudi. He's just been
I did see that one. Yeah.
He's been gunning for his players like no one's business. So yeah, off the back of this De Ligt situation, I guess there's maybe question marks over whether he'll start as well. There's probably a chance that Maguire comes in. I don't know how much longer we want to talk about that, because I think both of us will probably unanimously agree that we should start De Ligt. And we've got to try and build that centre-back partnership between De Ligt and Martinez, who also has looked pretty rubbish. So I think I hope and pray that he stays firm on that, and that's maybe one of the things that he's stubborn with, and he keeps playing De Ligt, because I think bringing Maguire back, as much as his form has improved, it's not the future. He's got 1 year left on his contract. It's quite obvious that he's not one of our starting centre-backs long term. And when Yoro comes back, I'm really hoping he's going to get pushed back a spot as well, and I'm expecting he would be. So I don't see the long-term vision in it. So there's question marks over De Ligt as well. But before we get into our predictions, then, because we've I don't know how much more we can analyze this game without kind of making it just the Ten Hag line of questioning. I'll ask you though, because I kind of answered it last week, but I'll reiterate it afterwards in a bit. But let's say United don't get a positive result against Southampton. Do you think this will affect Erik Ten Hag's future, or do you still think he'll be given a bit more time?
I think he will be given a bit more time. Just generally speaking, I don't think you can sack someone after 4 games, especially if you're Man United. Like, I think if you're more of a madhouse team, I think it could happen. Like, I could see like an Everton, a Nottingham Forest they could do that. I think that kind of suits the way that they behave. But for a Man United, particularly with Ineos, particularly with the fact that they've kind of shown half-hearted trust or faith in him by giving him an extra year and not sacking him basically and not being able to find anyone better, I think they won't go and just sack him after 4 games. I mean, I think there's always a possibility that someone can get sacked depending on the situation. Like if Southampton do you 4-0 or something, I feel like it could be on the cards that you get sacked, but I just don't see you getting beaten 4-0 by Southampton. So I think, if you come out of it with, a last minute loss or a draw or something like that, I don't think people, you will sack the manager. And I'm not really one for sacking people quickly, but one thing I will say is there's a weird phenomenon at Man United where the pressure builds up really, really, really quickly. Like, I think on Ten Hag, it built up really quickly and then sustained for a long time. And he managed to obviously win a trophy that pushed it back down a little bit, got, relieved some of the pressure. And then now, this kind of start to the season, he's just seeing the pressure build back up again. And what you don't want to happen is to keep him in there for too long to the point where all of the fans are just on the tip, like at the tipping point completely. and then you bring in a new manager, or you give, let's say, Ruud van Nistelrooy the reins for a certain amount of time, and the fans are already kind of on edge and are not going to give him very much of a chance. So that's the only benefit I would see to maybe sacking him early, if they know that he's not going to be the one moving forward, or if they've seen the signs. I don't think if they drag it out, wait for ages, terrible results happening over and over again, I don't think long term that's the best thing for the club, and I don't think it's the best thing for the fan base either. So yeah, I don't think he'll get sacked after this game, but I don't think it'll be too many more games before he does get sacked. Between now and the next international break, if he's not getting, in my opinion, like a good, I would even say like straight wins the whole time. If he's not getting all wins, I would be worried for his job, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I said it on last week's pod, and I still stand firm on this. I think if he does get sacked, it will most likely be in the next international break in November, and it will most likely be because he's had a catastrophic run in these 7 or 8 games or whatever it is in the next 22 days.
Yeah.
And I focus on the league form more than anything, because if we drop a few points in Europe, we've still got time to recover that. There's enough fixtures to progress.
Yeah.
But if you see us drop points against Southampton, drop points in a big chunk of these Premier League games, and start getting really far adrift from top 4, top 6, then I think they'll pull the trigger in November. And again, like I said last week, I would have no arguments. And what you said last week, it would have been a masterclass in sacking yourself, because the structure's changed around him. He's got more players in. He's got a new coaching staff. There's opportunities for him to change certain things that are clearly not working. You can argue in the press conference about how many trophies you won as much as you want, but some of the things that are being put to you are valid around the play style, around some of our obvious weaknesses, and also some of our issues in front of goal. We don't look like we can score many goals either. So, there's quite a few issues all around. So he's been given quite a lot of time and resources now to try and fix some of these issues, which have been longer to medium term. He needs to do it now. And if he doesn't, I'm pretty sure this run is going to be critical to his future as our manager. But let's get into the predictions then, Johns. Southampton against United. What do you think the score will be?
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Man United win. So I think away from home, it'll be a tough game. I don't think it'll be easy. I think Southampton aren't they're not good, but they're not, in my opinion, Derby County levels, where they're just going to get absolutely bladdered by everyone. But I think you'll get the win. I think it'll be a nervy one, and I think you have to kind of play yourself into the game, and you might, go an early goal down or something like that. But I think overall, you'll just have enough quality to overcome Southampton. So, yeah, 2-1 Man United win. I'll go for a late Garnacho winner.
Wow. You think it's going to be that tight? Yeah, I mean, looking at the Southampton, the way they play, they're quite Burnley-ish from last year.
They are.
They actually might be more extreme than Burnley. I've got to be honest. I've listened to that Russell Martin speak, and he sounds like he really knows what he's talking about. But he is he looks stubborn in his way of playing out from the back, trying to do things the right way, pass it from back to front, scoring beautiful goals. And they just don't have the quality of player to do that in the Premier League. They can do that in the Championship to significant effect, but the Premier League, even with us, we're not even that great a pressing team. We're not even that much of a clinical team, but I still can, visualize a lot of opportunities coming when we're pressing them high and them not having the ability to break through the press on every occasion. Yeah. So I think they are going to be not Derby County level, but I think they're going to be kind of Burnley-ish from last year and really, really struggle to stay up. And I think we're probably, I won't say we're, again, like I said, I don't think we're one of the best pressing teams, but I do think pressing high up the field is something we've improved. on last season. We've won a lot of, even against Liverpool, we won a lot of high turnovers. We just weren't clinical. So I'm just hoping and praying that this time we'll show a bit of cutting edge, and hopefully we'll be able to put some chances away. So I'm going to go United to win as well, but I'm going to go 3-1 Man United. I'm just praying that these are more hopium for the goals, because we've looked pretty blunt in attack. So I'm just praying. Also, did you see that thing with Van Dijk dapping everyone up in the Netherlands lineup in the tunnel? And he just ignored Xerxes. Him and Xerxes just ignored each other. So there's some situations going on with these Dutch people, bro. There's some madness going on with them.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm not dapping you up if you just beat me 3-0 and like, we're literally playing in positions where like we are literally fighting against each other and you're tickling my captain's neck and stuff. Like we're not doing that, man. And the Dutch are very direct. I think we kind of talked a little bit about Koeman and how he talks. I think the Dutch ain't messing about, man. If I don't like you, get out of my face. I'm not chatting to you. Get out of it.
Yeah, there were no niceties. It's not like England camp where everyone's like hugging up with their rivals. The Dutch are keeping it old school. But yeah, big up Xerxes as well for just holding that down. You know what I mean? We don't shake hands with the ops. All right, let's go on to the big game then of the weekend. Tottenham versus Arsenal. Is this just the big Sunday kickoff? I think, isn't it? I think it's like the 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Sunday kickoff or something like that. All the build up this year, it's at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium first. I don't know why it feels like it's always the other way around normally, right? It always like kind of first.
It pretty much always is. Yeah, it pretty much always is at the Emirates first.
Yeah, but it's flipped this year, so you're gonna go away. And yeah, boy, the timing of this is not. I would say the Man United Liverpool game probably wasn't great timing for us, but I feel like this one's probably not great timing for you guys as well. Injuries galore, suspensions, quite a lot of things going on, and I guess the only saving grace is Tottenham are coming into this game off the back of a defeat and a draw themselves, so they're not exactly like absolutely pulling up trees. But yeah, I guess the immediate situations for us to chat about is, who do you think is going to fill the DM or kind of 8 slot that Declan Rice has been occupying? And then who do you think is going to fill in the number 10 role, with Odegaard looking like he's now out for 3 weeks to a month after that injury on international duty? Because that's 2/3 of your midfield gone. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think you're going to move players out of position, or do you just think some of the youngsters are going to come in? How do you think Arteta is going to approach this game?
So I really don't know. I've kind of gone around in my head and I kind of thought, what do I think will happen? And obviously we've got Jorginho and Partey, and I think they're probably the two most natural players to play in those kind of 8 roles, right? So from that point of view, I'd expect the two of them to start in those roles. But the issue is, now that we've got no Vieira, it's the cam role, the 10, that I'm more worried about in terms of who's going to replace Odegaard. I've seen some stuff about Arsenal fans talking about how Saka can play in the 10 and all this other stuff, but I just don't think that is a likely thing that we're going to try and do during a game like this, against Tottenham. So I'm kind of thinking, like, is he going to try and throw in somebody from the one of the youngsters, like a Nwaneri or someone similar? And I just can't see that happening either. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe he starts with maybe like a Zinchenko next to a Partey, and then sticks Jorginho into a 10, which I know Jorginho really doesn't suit. But I think in terms of creativity, maybe Jorginho probably offers the most out of the attacking midfield options that we've got right now, like in terms of people that are real attackers. So, I mean, if we had other people fit, I would say we'd probably start somebody else. But I could, the only other thing I can think of maybe is that he tries to stick Havertz in the 10 and then try and play maybe Trossard ahead of him. But to me, that's totally fine. But like to go from Odegaard to Havertz, creativity wise, is mental. Like I don't see how that would work unless we're just going to start overloading the flanks and we're just going to basically not play through the middle at all, right? Like just have, let's say, Jorginho and Partey spraying it out wide to Saka and maybe to Martinelli or Sterling, even, depending on who starts. And then just have them playing balls into the box or in behind, or low balls into the box for Trossard or Havertz to try to get onto. But I don't know, man. I'm honestly a bit worried, and just looking through our squad, it really looks like we are super light on players right now. And I've been having this thought. I don't know if we want to get into it too much, but I've been having this thought recently of like we've had 2 years now of really trying to push you know the juggernaut of Man City to the absolute brink every single time, and we've been relatively lucky in terms of injuries, right? Like the only players that have got injured have been the ones that usually always get injured anyway, right? Like the Gabby Jesuses of the world. Um, but our key players haven't really had any injuries, and it kind of almost feels like this might be a bit of a down year where we maybe end up coming second or third. We suffer some injuries, we have to deal with some stuff here and there, and we come out next season, in the transfer window and go and buy a bunch of players that we need to revitalize the squad. Because it almost feels like getting rid of Vieira, getting rid of Nelson, getting rid of Nketiah, those are all players that I wanted to get rid of, but I was expecting that we would replace them with somebody, like for like, if not better, in every single one of those positions. And the issue that we've got right now is that we just haven't done that. And I think that will hurt us. We've got a really difficult run of fixtures coming up now, and we're going to have it looks like Marino's out until mid-October. Obviously, as you said, Odegaard's going to be out for the next 3 weeks now. Calafiori's bloody doubtful. We've got some serious issues, because if we go down, if we don't have Odegaard available, I think people don't realise just how much of our style and play depends on him. And as much as I don't think Fabio Vieira was really good for us, generally speaking, I do think that he had a lot of characteristics that you could say were relatively similar to Odegaard, right? Left-footed, quick, kind of lightweight, a bit cheeky here with like little dinky passes left and right. He probably wasn't as, I guess, composed and as good a playmaker as Odegaard, but at least you can kind of see, all right, maybe he'll do like a poor man's Odegaard in that role in the meantime while Odegaard's injured. But now, we're going to put Marino in there? Who we're going to put Havertz? Who's going to play in that role if Odegaard's out for 6 months? There's no one. Like, unless we're going to really entrust put all of our trust into the youngsters, we're screwed, and we're going to have to find another way to play, because Odegaard is so central to everything that we do, almost too central. I've seen some tacticos on Twitter that kind of diss how reliant we are on Martin Odegaard, but it's obviously been working being so reliant. But without him, I just don't see what happens. So, yeah, I know that your question was who do you think is going to replace it, but I just have to get that out there, because I'm really starting to see some signs that this might not be our year, man. We might not be able to do it, try and push City 3 times in a row.
Yeah, I think the way things have been laid out this season in terms of your fixtures, and then now these injuries and little suspensions and things like that are really going to make it hard for you guys. And the only thing you had in your control, because those things aren't really in your control, is making sure your squad is robust enough to deal with situations like this. And I guess that's the one criticism you can level at Arteta and Edu over this summer transfer window. Did they do enough to prepare the team for this type of scenario? Because you're right, you have been quite fortunate with injuries. Obviously, 2 seasons ago with your first title charge, you got quite unlucky at the end because Saliba went out, Tomiyasu went out, and you were left with Rob Holding. But even for the rest of that season, you were quite lucky. Like, you had your starting 11 for the most of that season to get you into that position. Last season, you didn't have many injuries at all. I mean, again, it was like you said, it was the injuries to the same people all the time. Tomiyasu, Jesus, Partey, the ones that you expect to probably get injured. And the rest of your squad was pretty healthy. And then this season, it's sod's law, isn't it? Like, your most critical player, the player that you play through the most and is, the fulcrum of your style and your team, gets injured. I think he was injured in the last game too, wasn't he? He kind of got a knock against Brighton, and then, he went off to Norway. And I mean, that's probably a little bit of an issue as well. Maybe, you needed to try and pull him out of that squad if you could. I know it's easier said than done, but, there's all these things where I just feel like little small decisions might be going the wrong way at this early stage, and it might just make this season a tough one to stay up there and compete and try and win the league with City again, because they bloody came out of the traps, all guns blazing, Haaland looks like he's been in the cryogenic chamber the whole summer, just waiting for these moments. It looks like it's going to be hard. And the only criticism, and I get it because I've been watching some Arsenal content creators, and I think Turkish makes a really good point about this. And obviously he does it with his usual kind of hilarious anger. But you're short, man, and you could see it coming throughout the whole summer with the deals you were doing. You were selling players, which is good. I think all your fans were happy about the players that you let go. But it was like you just said, there weren't the replacements coming in. And I know people will say, "Oh yeah, you got Sterling, you got Marino, you got Calafiori," but let's be honest, you didn't really sell a defender, did you? So you got one more player in a position you were stacked. You got one player in midfield, and you didn't really sell anyone in midfield. And then in your attacking midfield to front line, you sold 3 or 4 players, and you got one in. So
yeah, we lost out in the attacking section. That's where we are short. I don't think we're short in the center of midfield or in defense. I think adding a defender in basically just tells me that Zinchenko is going to be more of a center mid than he is a left back this year, right? And even Jurriën Timber can play in the defensive mid position. I'm not worried at all about goalkeeper, defense, and even the kind of central midfield, the 2 8s. I'm not really worried about that, but I am worried about our attacking threat because we relied so heavily on people like Odegaard and Saka last year, and then adding Trossard into the mix as well. And the year before that, we relied on Martinelli, Saka, and Odegaard basically, right? We've never really been able to rely on a striker, and we've relied on those 3 people. Now, if we lose, one of those 3, and arguably probably the most critical of the 3, just based off his position, we're gonna have to rely on who? Who we're gonna rely on Saka again? If he goes down, God forbid, God save us, we're screwed. If Trossard somehow just decides I'm not going to be the most clutch substitute you've ever seen in your life, then we're screwed again. And then Odegaard being out for 3 weeks, he did come from an injury-prone background, right? It's not crazy for him to be injured. If he goes and we've got absolutely no one creative to replace him, then again, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be relying on Havertz, who, I'll be honest with you, we made him look better last season because we fed him, right? We gave him the right opportunities. We gave him the right crosses, the right, back post, late runs, all of this kind of stuff that made him look really good. If you put the ball on the floor in front of his feet, he's not going to look the same. I'm sorry to say, he's not going to look the same. When you play him up top and he's bullying defenders and, getting headers and this, that, and the other, he looks good because that suits his game. When you put the ball on the ground and he starts doing his language style when he's, you're relying on him to be creative, we're not going to be so happy with the whole Havertz move. So I just think, it's naive is what we've been. And I think we had plenty of opportunities based off of, what was happening in the transfer window to do something about it. And I just don't think we moved quickly enough. I don't think we moved with any urgency or, real, vim to try and go and get somebody. I feel like the Sterling deal is just right place, right time, right numbers. We just ended up grabbing him. But we weren't planning on doing that, right? It was all the whole Chelsea debacle and Maresca coming out and saying, you ain't playing anymore. Give me your bloody shirt number. Get out of here. You're not playing. The only reason that we ended up getting him is because of that and because Chelsea were desperate to get some of his wages off the books. So we could have ended up without him either. So that to me just shows planning-wise, Edu, what are you doing, mate? Unless we're in some dire FFP position where we need to sell everybody, I don't understand why we've gone and done this. And this is kind of why I see it as it's possibly a down year. It almost seems Pep-like, where it's I know this season I'm going to be off the boil a bit. I'm going to try and get through it. And they're just so good that they managed to get through it and they managed to win things even despite having down years, right? Think of how many down years City have had in the last 4 or 5 years. It's been a couple where we've said, they don't look as good as they used to. They're not playing with a striker this year. De Bruyne is injured all the time. They have their down years and they still go and win the league. We're going to have a down year, but we just ain't going to be able to win the league. And I hope it's just because we're recharging so that next summer we go out and get someone, crazy, like a Nico Williams or whatever else. And I know you tell me I'm dreaming or whatever, but that's what we're going to need to get back into a fighting position, I think, personally. Unless we're just waiting or hoping that Pep Guardiola leaves at the end of the season, which is possible, but that would be a really cowardly way to try and win something. I'd much rather win it while he's here. So it's a sad situation, but I could. It's the puzzle pieces are starting to kind of drop now, and it almost seems like it might be intentional. Like we know we're not going to be able to get people. There's the right people aren't on the market right now, so we're just going to try and go into the season with a slightly lighter squad and do our best, expecting things not to be quite as good, and then we'll come back next year. But
Yeah,
if that is the
yeah.
case, it's a sad one for Arsenal fans because it's going to be a bit of an emotional roller coaster. I can imagine.
Yeah, I think it's I've seen people talk about it, and I get the logic being like he's gone from a squad of 22 players and he could only trust like 12 or 13 of them to a squad of 20 players, but he can trust 16 or 17 of them. That's the logic some people are using. But the issue you have is, yeah, luck is everyone, fate and luck applies to everyone in a pretty similar way. And you've been quite lucky with the injuries and the suspensions and certain other situations in the last couple of years. You don't keep evading that. Like it's going to come round and hit you at some point. And so maybe it just looks like the strategy hasn't lined up with what seems like already a bit more trouble around suspensions and injuries, even at this early stage. So let's see, man. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be a masterstroke because he's seen and weary and some other youngsters in training, and he thinks they've got Kobe Mainu vibes about them, and they're going to break through into the squad. Who knows, man? You never really know. You got to give them a chance to come in, and I do think there's a possibility that Nwiri comes in, but I do think it's probably unlikely. I think my opinion on who will replace Rice and Odegaard is most likely that he's going to drop Jorginho in there next to Partey, play a double pivot, put Havertz in the 10, and play Trossard in up top as a false 9 running off him. And that will probably be what you do. I think that will probably be the safest option really away at Spurs, because we'll talk about it in a minute. But some people are acting like Spurs are absolute dog and saying that you can still go win there easily without 2 of your best players. Don't get me wrong, you could win there, but I don't think it'll be easy. I mean, with your best players, it's still kind of nip and tuck, but without a couple of your really top players, I think it's going to be a bigger fight than some Arsenal fans are willing to concede. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Last question on this before we get into predictions. You've obviously got a very difficult run. You've got this game. You've got Atalanta away in the Champions League. We don't need to ask anyone more than Liverpool about how tough that can be. And then you've got Man City away after that. Bloody hell. That Premier League supercomputer absolutely bent you guys over, didn't it? If you drop points in this game, because I'll be honest, no offense to Spurs, this is one of the easier ones in that run. They're all difficult, but it's definitely easier than City away, right? Let's be real.
Yeah.
If you drop points in this game, what do you think? Are you still going to feel like it's too early to concede anything in the title race, or do you think it's you seem pretty down just then? Do you think it will be curtains on the wall, as Saeed says?
I don't think it's curtains on the wall, but I just think it puts you in a position behind Man City, and you've got to try and catch them up. And I think the only way you beat them is if you just do what Liverpool did, and you just go on a crazy run, and you just don't let them ever come near you, right? Like, and that's what we've seen in the last 2 seasons. It's the only way you can really do it, right? Like, you might get lucky, they might slip up here and there and get a draw and drop a couple of points, but it's not going to happen frequently, right? You can pick 20 games, and you can imagine that they maybe drop points in 1. So if we keep dropping points at the beginning of the season, that's totally fine. It just means that we're going to have to be literally impeccable from now until the end of the season. We're going to have to beat them, probably home and away, and then beat all of the other top 4 teams around them as well. Because I don't get me wrong, I'm not a major fan of Liverpool, but they're looking good, and I do think that people are writing them off a bit too early this season. I definitely think they could go on and maybe be the challenge to Man City's title this season if Arsenal don't, buck up. So I don't think it's curtains on the wall, as Saeed would say, but I do think it's the probability of winning the league just goes down, right? And, in other times before Man City, before this whole juggernaut, it wouldn't be as big a deal this early in the season. I just think now with Man City, it's a much bigger deal. And I think it does drop your chances quite significantly every time you drop points earlier on in the season, because like I said, they just don't drop points at the end of the season. They're just going to come through. Rodri's going to turn into a bloody droid again and just start winning everything.
He
And
hasn't even played yet. He
exactly,
hasn't
that's
even
what I mean.
played yet.
We're talking about depth. They haven't had their best player. That's arguably one of the top 3 candidates, top 4 candidates for Ballon d'Or this year. They haven't even had him, and they're still murking everyone. And it's an absolute joke what they're doing to teams right now. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one, man. They've literally just lost one of their better players for 80 million to Atletico, and they look like that nothing happened. They don't care. It means nothing.
Yeah, I agree, man. I don't know if the Tottenham game is a nail in the coffin, but I do think if you come out of this run without many points, it might be sayonara for the title race already. Because fighting with City is all good and well. I'm not saying you couldn't come second. I'm not saying you couldn't end up, being quite close to them in the end. But I mean, just to win the title and be in a legitimate title race. Because if you lose this game or you draw and City win, you're 4 or 5 points behind them already. And then you obviously playing them away. If you lose that, you're 7 on top, or 8 points behind them already. That's too much, bro. After like 5 or 6 games, it's too much. If you're a couple of points behind and you're nip and tuck with them, I don't think City are like completely unbeatable. But I think if you go 7 or 8 points behind after 5 or 6 game weeks, and you've still got to go to Anfield, you've still got to go to a couple of other, big grounds, and you might drop more points, I don't think it's doable. So I think, the Tottenham one would be. I've seen some Arsenal fans out there saying if we drop points at Tottenham, it's done. I don't think that's realistic. But if you drop points in both games, big trouble. And I think you need to. I think the one thing that you said, which I agree with, is even if it's a down season, to maintain where you guys are looking to go, that's all fine, right? I don't think fans should lose their head if you do have a bit of a, you stay in second, but you're a bit further behind, or you drop to third and you're quite a bit behind compared to the last 2 seasons. You're still in there. You got to stay comfortably in Champions League. You got to show that you're still a good team. And I think you guys are a good enough team that I don't think that's not going to happen. But I just think you can't let yourself get pulled into the dunya where, like, Tottenham, Man U, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa. You don't want to be dragged into that madness. I can speak from experience. You want to stay up there where you are, even if you can't convert it into a title-winning season this season. So I think that's got to be your bottom line. You got to just make sure you stay consistently above the scragglers. All right, let's get into the prediction then, Johns. What do you think? How do you think it will go, and what do you think the score will be?
I'm going to go for a 4-2 Arsenal win. I think these are high scoring games. I mean, the last fixture was 3-2, right? We won. We went 3 up, and then they somehow clawed a couple goals back. I think it will be, again, another high scoring game. I don't think it's hard to predict. I don't think it's easy to predict either. I think it's like flip a coin, whatever, because I think it will be a madness game, and everyone will just high line for life, mate. And then Arsenal doing what Arsenal do. Gabriel does something, Saliba does something, Raya does something. Who knows? There's mistakes to be made in this game on both sides. So I see a high scoring game.
Yeah, I agree, man. I don't think this might be the prediction curse, but I think there's absolutely 0% chance on like a low scoring 0-0 or 1-0 or something like that. I think the way the way the cards have been dealt with your injuries and everything like that, I don't think you can just sit in and try and hope for a dogged defensive display. I don't think it's completely impossible that he tries to do that, because think of City last year, you did that, and I know there was criticism, but I thought it was a top decision. But I think Spurs don't allow you to do that. They're too gung-ho. They're at home as well. The stadium's going to be rocking. I think there's absolutely 0 chance it's a low-scoring game. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be pretty basketballish. But yeah, I think if you had a full team, I think 4-2, totally reasonable. I think with this current team, I'm not quite there to say Arsenal are gonna win that convincingly. And actually, the more I think about it, I think Tottenham are going to want to bounce back. So I'm going to go for a 2-2, which I don't think will be the worst result in the world for you guys, considering um, the injuries and kind of some of the turmoil we're going through. But yeah, I think it's going to be 2-2. A quick scoreboard update. I'm doing this reluctantly because I'm getting absolutely walloped. It's I've got 3 points still. I got nothing right on the last prediction, so no advancement for me on that side. You got one result right. You got the Liverpool beating Man United result. You were close to getting the exact score as well. If it wasn't for Salah scoring the third, you would have got it. So you've got 1 point, and then I think we both got the Arsenal Brighton result wrong. We both predicted Arsenal home wins, and it was a draw. So
Thank
you're
you,
winning.
Chris Kavanagh. Good job, mate.
Exactly. Fans still salty about that. So the scoreboard right now is 11-3. So yeah, it's spanking. Now let's get into the special segment for this week's pod. We're going to do a North London derby combined 11. So the rules of play, Johns, we're both doing 4-3-3 or 4-4-3, as Todd Bowley once said. And we're going to be doing not based on current availability or suspensions or anything. We're just going to do, if both teams had their strongest squads available, who would be in the combined 11. So we'll start off with goalie. I expect this to be a quick one. Who's your goalie, Johns?
David Raya, Vicario, nice try. You did all right last season, but you ain't getting in there, mate.
Yeah, Vicario is a good player. I think he's decent. I think there was a bit of hype at the beginning because of I think Tottenham fans were just so happy to see the back of Lloris that they were gonna hype up anyone who came in and didn't flap about. So I think he was decent, but he kind of got exposed on the whole corner thing, and I think people have probably slightly overhyped him. I think he's a good Premier League goalie, but I do think Raya's at least slightly better than him, and I think this season Raya started like a house on fire. He's been really impressive, so I think that's a tap in one. To be honest, I think this whole defense is going to be pretty easy to say.
Pretty much.
We'll move on to right back then. Who's your right back?
Benny Blanco. Pedro Porro. This is a close one, though, because Pedro Porro is good, but just I think Ben White defensively is miles better than him. I think attacking-wise, they're probably closer to each other, but yeah, Porro doesn't offer enough in the defensive quarter, whereas Ben White is the Don of the shithousery and of the defending. So we'll take that.
yeah. I think this one, I agree with you. I was tempted by Porro because I do think going forward, Porro is better. I think he chips in with more goals, and I think he's basically a winger, isn't he? But I do think defensively and all-round game, you have to go for Ben White because I think the gap between the two in defence is massive. I think Ben White's a significantly better defensive right back than Porro is. Porro's kind of got a bit of the bozo gene in him. He does dumb stuff sometimes. Yes. And I don't think Ben White has that. Unless you're Rashford in your prime and you're sending him with flip-flaps. All right, let's go centre-back pairing. This one should be easy as well, isn't it?
Yes.
It's got to be.
I don't want to hear none of it from anyone. I know that they love Van der Ven and they love Romero, but I'm sorry, you're not getting in there. It's not. It's Saliba and Gabriel. All right, you'd probably be fourth choice. You'd be fourth choice centre back for us. All right, so set yourself down.
I think the temptation will probably be more on the Gabriel and Van der Ven side, right? Because I've seen some clips as well recently. Some people did overrated Premier League 11s, and I saw stuff about Gabriel being rubbish. I'm not having that. Gabriel is underrated.
No, he was severely
underrated.
He was better than Saliba last season, and no one wants to put it because he's got the bozo gene, or he's had the bozo gene on him. He's got it in him, and he's had it and shown it a couple of times. Season before last. Even they're blaming him for the Brighton goal, and I'm sorry, I didn't blame him for the Brighton goal. I actually thought it was Saliba's fault. But no, I'm not having that about Gabriel. And they love Van der Ven so much, but I'm sorry, just because he can run up and down the pitch fast doesn't mean he's good at defending. And if he can run up and down the pitch so fast, and he's with a World Cup winning centre back, why are you conceding so many goals? Right? You've apparently got a good goalkeeper as well. So I don't want to hear that, highline or not. The two of you are stinking it up if you're letting in this many goals for this many teams. You're a
Yeah, I
centre-back
mean,
pairing. I don't care if you can run 90 yards and, put an assist through. You're a centre-back. That's not what I'm paying you for.
yeah, it's funny. It's funny that you've got more smoke for Van de Ven because I've definitely got more smoke for Romero. I don't
Oh
mind
no,
Van de Ven. I
Romero
think he's good.
stinks as well, but he's dead and buried. I don't even need to talk about him. They were trying to gas him up as if he was as good as Van Dijk a couple of seasons ago, and my
Oh
man is
my god!
literally he's probably the most useless centre back I've seen ever. All he is shithousery. From your players, you want them to be good plus a bit of a shithouse. Like that works, right? Like a Roy Keane-esque Patrick Vieira, it works. But if you're absolute crap and you're a shithouse, who cares? You're just Neil Mope. You're just centre back Neil Mope.
Wow,
That's all that you are,
wow!
right? Why
I
do I
was
care
not
about you?
expecting that. I was not
Stinks.
expecting this rant. Beautiful, clear bit up. But I agree. No, I agree. Romero's. I just hate that he's always put in a convo with Lissandro, and it's always like, oh, who's better? Like, don't even start. I know Lissandro's had a stinker start, but for me, there's not even a combo. But whatever. I agree with you. It's Galiba centre back pairing, Gabriel and Saliba for sure. Left back. All right, so this one might be a bit tasty. Who have you gone for this one?
So as much as I hate Tottenham, I'm not stupid, and I think some Arsenal fans would probably go early on Calafiori or go early on Timber, but I don't think they've done enough in an Arsenal shirt to warrant them being put in ahead of Udogie, who had a really good season for Tottenham last year. So yeah, I can't do that. I don't think Zinchenko belongs in that conversation either. You've
How
got
dare
to
you?
be going for. I'm not going to say proven because it's only been one season, but I'm going to say you've got to go for who's more proven. And Calafiori could have an unbelievable season. Timber could have an unbelievable season, and maybe next season I'd put them into the combined 11. But I don't think you can do that off of their body of work so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this one has to be a dog. Yeah, and I agree with you. Maybe some people might say Timber, they might say Calafiori, um, but I think that would just be bias. I think they might be
Yeah,
better players than Udogie long term, but Udogie was sensational last season, and if he didn't get injured, he would have been team of the season left back because of his
yeah,
performances. Um, and I think he's one of Tottenham's real like shining lights in terms of their young players. And I know they've gone for this strategy. You can see with the signings they've done this transfer
Bergvall and
window
all
that
of them. Yeah.
Bergvall, Archie Gray,
Archie Gray. Yeah,
going for a lot of youngsters. So I think they're really putting stocks in finding these young gems. And with the doggy, I think it's probably part of the reason why they think there's some success in that because he's been class. So yeah, I think the doggy left back. All right, centre midfield. I'll give you mine first. So I've
sure.
gone real P. I've gone real P and P with this. So I've gone Declan Rice and Pape Matar Sarr. I just think both of them up and down, up and down. They're both good going forward, both good driving with the ball. Declan Rice will probably be able to sit a bit better because I think Sarr kind of doesn't have that side of his game fully flushed out yet. But he's getting better. So yeah, I'm gonna go for Rice and Sarr. Obviously, I know Rice is suspended for this game in reality, but yeah, I
Yeah,
couldn't put Basuma. I couldn't put Basuma in there. The amount of bozo moments he's had as well, bloody laughing gas and all this other stuff as well. I couldn't put him in there. There's too much gas been put on Basuma. I was hearing
yeah.
Basuma versus Rice combos at some point last season, and I almost threw up. So yeah, I
Didn't they?
think
Weren't they trying to do
you're
like
right.
Basuma versus Rodri convos as well a couple of years ago? They were trying to do all
God,
kinds of madness, so we're not going to allow that.
blasphemy,
But
blasphemy.
I've done it a bit of a different way because I kind of put Party and Basuma as like side by side to say who's better, and then I did Rice versus Saar, and I didn't really think of it any other way. But I probably should have because I do like Saar, and I actually would probably prefer to put him in over Party. But I'm going to go with what I wrote down, which is, I mean, Basuma Party is just bozo off. It's just like I don't really want either of them. But if I have to absolutely choose, I'm going Party. Which is pretty funny because Basuma likes to do some balloons while he's partying. And then between Rice and Sarr, I went for Rice. I think Sarr's really good, and if I could write this again, I would probably put Sarr and Rice together. But I think they're probably relatively similar in how they play, maybe.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm gonna go Party and Rice. Who have you got in the 10? I don't even want to hear. If I hear anything beginning with M, that's not Martin. We're gonna have some real issues here.
No, you know I'm not one of those Wallies. I
Good
hate
work.
that Madison's in convos with Bruno. I mean, but people don't even put him in conversations. They unequivocally say he's better than Bruno, and it's just who's it? I heard someone's. Oh God! I heard someone say. I literally was so disgusted that I almost choked myself. I think I've heard people talk about this modern fan obsession with liking like people who look players who look good on the eye, and they're like street ballers, cage ballers, and focus on doing things stylishly and less on like end product. And I think
Mm.
it's such a good description of where like current football fandom is right now. And it was different back in the day. People try and compare it and say, you know, we used to love R9 and Zidane and all these guys before. And it's the same logic. And I go, no, because those guys actually delivered and won the top honours and absolutely balled out. They weren't just style, they were style and substance. And in this day and age, okay, we don't have those players as much anymore. There's very few, in fact, if any. But we do. So we do. I would, if we have to choose between style and substance right now, I'm going for substance with as much style as you can get. And people these days go the other way. And so when you look at that and you compare Maddison and Odegaard in that position, maybe Maddison does look slightly silkier on the ball. Maybe at times he does like glide with the ball, you know, and it might be more visually appealing than Odegaard. But there is no world where he is more impactful in terms of delivering for his team with goals and assists or pre-assists or whatever bollocks the tacticos want to call them these days. Odegaard is clear. I'm not even going to say it's a debate. He's clear. Maddison's a very good player. I'm not saying he's not a very good player, but there are some players that are clear. De Bruyne is clear. Odegaard is clear. I don't think Bruno's clearer than Maddison. I think he's better than him, and I think it's disgusting that there's convo, but I don't think he's clear. But I think those two are clear in terms of their impact. They've shown it now. So I think you have to go Odegaard in the camp. I don't think there's a discussion. And I'm expecting you not to really disagree with me either.
No, I agree with you, and I think it's a great conversation you bring up because everybody's got this like obsession with streets will never forget type borders, like the Adel Tarats, the Eden McGeedy's of the world, and stuff like that. But yeah, no one's trying to say that Adel Tarat was better than Eden Hazard or that Eden McGeady was better than Cristiano Ronaldo. Like we can appreciate players that are stylish and have something about them, and look good on the eye without trying to get them in conversations that they don't belong in. And I'm sorry to say, I'm not saying that Maddison's in that kind of category that he's so far off, but I think by the end of his career, you're going to look back and say, what has he done with it? And what did he contribute to any success that Tottenham had? And I honestly, I don't think you can consider him to be a core player of that team. I still look at him somewhat like I looked at Ozil at Arsenal and at a lot of other teams as well. It's like, he's a bit of a luxury player. Like, it's, if you've got all the other foundation around him, it's great to have him, and he can elevate you a little bit as well. But if you haven't got the foundation, it don't really matter if you have Maddison or not. He's not going to be able to take a game by the scruff of the neck, generally speaking, especially not against big teams. He's barely ever there because he's injured quite frequently. So I just don't feel like you can rely on him. Whereas look at Bruno, look at Odegaard. Odegaard, I'm literally about to cry. I don't know what to do without him now that we've not got him. You guys without Bruno would be a completely different animal as well, even worse than you are now. So
you saw it last season.
Exactly. I don't think you can say that about Maddison. I like stick Maddison in there. I'm like, oh yeah, they're a bit more creative. They look a little bit nicer, but are they really all that different from without him? I honestly don't think they are. They're obviously a little bit better, but I just don't think he's a game changer like a Bruno is to a Man United or an Odegaard is to Arsenal. So yeah, streets will never forget him. Maybe I don't even think he's in that category yet, but he's not going to be in this best cam of Premier League era conversation. And I'm not saying that Odegaard should be in there or Bruno should be in there yet. I think by the end of their careers they could be, but just right now they're not. But I don't even think he's on that trajectory.
Nah. I think Maddison's is going to be remembered as a good Premier League player in a similar way than like a Letitia or something like that was during the earlier Premier League years. Like people who know ball will say that he was a good player, but he won't be elevated in. He shouldn't be elevated into those top conversations because he's just not. He's just not in that bracket, man. And I think that's okay. I don't think that's even like a slant on him or to say something just absolutely horrible. I just think that's just the reality. I think people are forcing it to try and get him in there because he does some nice things. But I just don't think that's. I don't. Yeah, like you said, I don't even know if I feel uncomfortable even putting him in streets will forget type player. I think he's just a very good technical player, but anything beyond that, I think people are just forcing it because we want to try and get more players in this era into those conversations. But I don't think we should do that. I think we should just like it's like dropping the bar for world class. I just don't think we should do it. I think we should just keep the standards up. And if people don't hit it, they don't hit it. It's all good. All right, let's go to right wing again. This should be a tap in. Bukayo Saka, surely for both of us. Yeah, big sacks. Get in. All right, Bukayo's going to be right wing, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see. A lot of pressure on him now that Odegaard's injured as well. Let's see how he stands up to it. Generally, so far he's done well. So let's keep it going. Left wing, I think this should be a tap in as well. Probably the other way. I've gone for Asia's best ever player, Heung-min Son. Have you done that too? You got to.
Yeah.
Rivalry aside. Yeah, I saw some very irritating conversations about Son and like because I think some other channels have done combined 11s, all-time combined 11s and stuff, and some Tottenham fan reps were saying, reminding people he scored 140 goals for Spurs from the left wing, right? I saw that stat that was going around when Salah, I think it was before Salah put us to the sword, when it was like, what was it, 200 goals and assists or something, or 300 goals and assists in 350 games or something. Like Son is approaching like Premier League Hall of Fame type level of output. And I know he's played for Spurs and Spurs have stunk it up and they've done nothing, but his output is getting to a level where people are going to have some uncomfortable conversations and start to think why they're not putting him in those combos, because he has been world class at times, and even now he's their best finisher by a mile. He might be the best finisher on this list, I'll be honest. So yeah, I've gone Son left wing, and I think you probably agree. Yeah, we're Son on that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I just think that I've seen some ridiculous conversation also about like, oh, he's not a winger anymore. He can only play striker, as if like his legs are completely gone and he's just got nothing left. And I think people are really disingenuous about this because I think if it's because it's Tottenham and because like he's just so good at finishing that they can't seem to find a striker that can put a ball into the back of the net. Maybe they will with Solanke, but they're kind of forcing him into that position when Kane leaves. And it's almost if like, yeah, they're putting him in that position because he's an unbelievable finisher, but don't forget that he's still a really good left winger. And that's probably, in my opinion, still his prime position. Maybe in a couple of years, I think his legs will be gone. But also remember that Son can be a bit up and down. Like he has times where he bangs in 4 goals against one team in one match. And he has times where he doesn't score for 3, 4, 5 games. I think people forget that like Son is not invincible. I think he is a really, really good player. And I would say that he's the closest thing that they've got to world class in that team. And I think it's just really disingenuous what people are saying about him and trying to put him in conversations with players that he really doesn't belong with. Like I don't want to hear him compared to Cole Palmer's and all these other dons. Like they've been doing it for a season or something and they look really good. But I don't want to hear like people are, oh yeah, Cole Palmer's got to be chosen ahead of Son, or he's got to be ahead of this, or somebody else has got to be ahead of him. I think it's like people have completely forgotten Son's resume in the league. Like, and that's coming from somebody who hates Spurs. Like, I don't want to have to say anything nice about him, but his resume is, you can't touch him. Like, you wouldn't put people like this in conversation with Sadio Mane. Why are you putting him in conversation with Son? Like, Son's done more in the league so far. I know, like, yeah, trophy-wise hasn't, but like in terms of his resume in the league, he's done more. Like in terms of goals and assists and output. So, yeah, I just think it's a disingenuous conversation that people are having, and Yeah, I sometimes wonder if it's just because he's kind of not he's quiet. He's not coming out trying to say stuff about him, and he doesn't have a big South Asian community or East Asian community, sorry, coming out and backing him in media and this, that, and the other. That he just gets kind of left by the wayside in all these conversations all the time. So yeah,
I definitely think that is the case, bro. I think it is, and I'm not trying to like race bait or do any kind of madness with it. It's just common sense. He is absolutely in conversations with Mane, with Salah. I mean, I'm not saying Salah's not better. Salah is better, but I'm just saying he's
yeah,
in that bracket of elite wingers. Salah, Mane, Hazard. In the modern era, Son is in that category and can chat to them. I'm not saying he's better than them all, but I'm saying he can rightfully chat to them. People are absolutely disrespectful when they just like dismiss him and put him in the bracket below. He's not. He's in that bracket firmly, and he's absolutely mashed work. And if you look at some of those players, Liverpool, they've won one Premier League. It's not like they're so clear because of their trophies either. It's not even the case.
mm.
So let's just be honest about it, and let's not add biases and perceptions of people into this conversation. Let's just look at their resume and how they've absolutely mashed it. He's literally been nicknamed Sonaldo. If someone is nicknamed Sonaldo, like that also might give you an inkling that he's bloody class, mate. You know what I mean? Being
Yeah.
compared to one of the goats. So, all right, let's go on to centre forward and wrap this up. This one might be a bit trickier. Who are you going for?
I'm going Havertz, and you can say what you want about Solanke. I think that his resume at Bournemouth is really good, but he ain't done shit for Tottenham yet. So I'm sorry, I'm not putting him into a combined 11. If this was a Bournemouth Arsenal combined 11 from last season, yeah, maybe I'd consider sticking him in there. But it's not like he's bloody Cristiano Ronaldo moving from Real Madrid to Juventus or something. It's not like it's unthinkable to leave him out of this list. And I think Havertz has been good for us. I'm not going to say he's been class, but I think he's been good. I think he's found his feet as a centre forward and not as really anything else for us. And I think if you have to line up with this team, I think a lot of people would stick Havertz in there. So I'm going Havertz. I know that will get flack, and I know people will go for Solanke because he's a more he's what you think of when you think of a nine, right? When you think of a centre forward, you don't think of Havertz, you think of Solanke. But I think that is doing Havertz a bit of a disservice because he's unorthodox. He's not what you expect from a striker. But if you look at his effectiveness and what he contributes to the team, I don't think you can argue that he does what needs to be done as a striker, and he adds a lot to a team.
Yeah, I think you're right. I did think this would probably be more of a Havertz and Solanke shootout, but it just didn't feel like there was like a clear and obvious choice between the two. So I've kind of bent the rules a bit and I've gone for Trossard. Um, and
Okay, fair enough.
I get it. Havertz scored more goals last season. Solanke's definitely scored more goals last season. But I think for me, neither one of them have kind of proven enough to make me think, okay, that they're the clear striking choice here. And so when I thought about it, I just thought, who would I feel the most confident going into a game at centre forward who's going to bag me goals and get me important goals? And I think when you think about it from that perspective, I think Trossard was the one. And I know he's not a traditional nine, but I've liked him when he's played there, and I feel like he's come up with some real clutch goals, which I haven't quite seen. Obviously, Solanke's done nothing for Spurs yet, but with Havertz, I think he's getting there. I think
Yeah.
he's getting there, and I'm building confidence in Havertz as a centre forward. And I think if we were to do this again, um, maybe before the next North London derby, I probably would lean towards him if he continues in the direction that he's going. But I think at this point, Trossard, it feels uncomfortable for me to not find a place for him in this team somewhere. And I think he can't go on the wings because I think the
Yeah.
wingers that we've chosen are head and shoulders above him. But I think as centre forward, he can chat to Havertz and Solanke, and I think I would go for him. But
Mm.
I agree with you. In terms of the shootout between the two of them, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I think Havertz has definitely mashed more work for you guys than Solanke, so I can understand that logic. All right, so we're pretty close, really, our teams, aren't we? I think centre midfield, I've put in a Sarr and you've put in a Party. And then centre forward, you've gone for Havertz and I've gone for Trossard. But yeah, pretty resounding Arsenal team. combined 11. Sorry, with a lot of Arsenal players in the team. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8. You've got 9. So wow. Okay. Yeah. So all right, guys, it's up to you then. You're going to have to win this game then. This is a bit too one-sided for us to predict anything other. Oh, well, to be fair, I was the only one who predicted
Also, just be aware that the players that we've chosen, not all of them are actually starting. So
yeah, also true. That's a good point. Odegaard and Rice will not be in this game, so that does affect the outcome. All right, Johns, we've gone longer than I thought we would, but it's been a great ep. Let's see how the games go, and hopefully both our teams get the W's. Well, I hope actually you get a draw, because I desperately need to start clawing points back. I need to claw points back. It's not personal. I just need to. I can't be getting pummeled like I am right now. So let's see how the games go this weekend, and we'll catch up with everyone next week. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Ant. Cheers, everyone.